I met Sophie when she was born. My mom's 35 minutes of laboring at the hospital, I'm told. And my dad kind of set the scene for Sophie as a little kid, which was fast and furious. And that has carried into the rest of her life also. Sophie was a chaotic little kid, I've heard, and then that transferred into a very energetic teen and so on. But to elaborate on the potty training story that David, my dad, David, Sophie was a little terrorist, and little Ellie was just trying to learn to use the bathroom, and so my parents thought that it would give me a little bit of respite to build a little potty or a little playground in the living room. Yeah. And the idea was that it would get me away from little Miss Walks at 10 months. And apparently it lasted about 6 hours until she figured out how to get on top of it, so there wasn't a lot of relief there. Sophie and I have shared a lot in our life. We're only 18 months apart. We shared a lot of friends. We've played on the same sports teams. We drove to school together before Sophie could drive herself. We've shared bunk beds in multiple different houses, including the tiny Eastport apartment that we lived in. That was a very fun time in our life. Sophie and I were in high school for 2 years together and played volleyball together, and Sophie's really good at everything she does. And freshman on the varsity team came right in, took my middle hitter spot. And that was a tense 2 weeks in our life. But it ended up that we got to play next to each other then, so it worked out. I think all of you have known Sophie at different times in her life, but here are some of my favorite things about her. I'll get to you. Sophie makes people feel very important and known when she's talking to them. She's very engaging. Sophie's my favorite person to be in a bar with because she will just tell every girl how much she likes their outfit and make sure that they're safe and they're good and just really build them up. And that's very fun to watch. She's everyone's bestie. Sophie is very creative. She just makes everything more beautiful that she interacts with. She's just very talented. And I think this is such a cool way that she is a steward of the creation around her. Sophie is very funny and dry and sarcastic. But she does this without putting people down, which I think is a very unique. I think it's just easy to tell a joke at someone's expense, and she doesn't do that. She is someone that I'm glad is in my corner now, though in our teenage years it wasn't always that way. Maybe I was a little afraid of her then. But I think it's turned into a low tolerance for people being bullies, and that is really cool to see. Sophie is very insightful, very emotionally aware, and she thinks really deeply. And so Sophie being a little speedy little terror, I guess is the word that Dad used. I don't know. So that's Sophie. And then she met Craig. And Sophie's a catch, and so she met Craig. And the first thing that Sophie started talking about with Craig was how insightful he was and how he asked her really good questions and he really listened to her answers. And I remember her just being really in awe of this, and I was like, okay, yeah, sure. I knew Craig as Luke Borchelt's friend from college. And when I first, no, we're good. And when I first met Craig, I was a protective older sister to Sophie, which really just means that I was rude to Craig. And Craig, despite this, was very sweet and was very inquisitive and kept asking questions and gave me a lot of grace in that. And that, I missed one of my jokes. Chuck Norris. So, slowly but surely, I was gonna make a tattoo joke, but so there it is. I was gonna say Sophie liked his inquisitive and deep thinking, but she also probably just liked his tattoos. Okay. It slowly became clear how committed Sophie and Craig were to each other, and in the time since, it has just been a joy to watch them grow together and as individuals. And Craig has grown to become one of my biggest cheerleaders. There's no one that hypes me up quite as much as Craig. He is just permanently in my corner and very encouraging all the time. And one of my favorite memories of Craig is when he met the McDougals at Christmas this year, and was the family tree poster board was brought out, and he was grilled on it. And he did just that. Him and Diane went over it for a good while. It has been a pleasure to watch Sophie and Craig build their life together. Steve Wishart, my mom read from Ephesians 5 earlier, but one of those verses says, "Therefore be imitators of God as beloved children, and walk in love as Christ loved and gave himself up for us." And I think Craig and Sophie show this in how they are just so loyal to their people, and that it's so cool to me how people that were important to one of them have become important to both of you. And you really just function as a unit and celebrate each other's friends, and I love that. They just walk and live in a way that welcomes others in, and that's pretty unique because you guys just don't stick to the people you know. You're very welcoming into your circle. I think Craig and Sophie together have such a gift of hospitality and creativity, and I think how you've just created this little home in downtown Annapolis. I'm so excited that they have the coolest apartment in Annapolis, and I'm so excited for you guys to host people there and just have your home be a blessing to others. And then the end of that Ephesians 5 passage, there's a verse that, this has already been said, but submitting to one another out of reverence for Christ. I think Sophie and Craig communicate so well and push each other and challenge each other in a way that is very productive and yet still very gentle. And you guys, if there's a problem, you seem to just talk about it, and that's pretty unique. And it's a really good example for us. You're just always teammates for each other, and you're good teammates. So I love you guys. Sophie, always gonna be one of my best friends. Craig, I've always wanted an older brother.